All right, welcome back to the channel. So we've got breaking news. Gervonta Davis has been indicted for a hit and run and faces more than 12 charges, and that is according to the Baltimore Sun. Let's talk about what took place and, really, what we should make of it. Let's do that in this video. All right, welcome back to the channel. So, according to the Baltimore Sun, Gervonta Davis was involved in a hit and run accident last November, in which his car ran a red light, or a car that he was in ran a red light, and now he's facing a bunch of charges, including failure to remain at the scene of an accident involving bodily injury, failure to render reasonable assistance to an injured person, and driving on a suspended license. And there are several other related charges related to that. According to this report, that originally the police did not confirm whether or not Davis was at the scene, but they listed Davis as the driver who fled. So, and that his Lamborghini ran a red light and collided with the 2004 Toyota Solara, and the Toyota was said to be destroyed in the accident, but the driver was suffered serious injury. So, all in all, this stuff looks like it is not the best scenario for Gervonta Davis. But, at the same time, man, I think when something like this happens, you just got to, take a wait and see type of, just wait and see pretty much and see what happens. Now, I remember when we heard about this, it was in November, and that was right. I don't remember if that was right before or right after Gervonta Davis had the fight with Leo Santa Cruz. But, I remember having that, that happen, and people were like, they didn't know for exactly who was driving the car, whether it was Gervonta Davis or whether it was somebody else. But, I'm quite sure that the media is going to run with this and make it look like Gervonta Davis was being very irresponsible. And, but, like all things, I think it's fair to Gervonta Davis to wait and see, what happens in court. And, hey, if it winds up that he did that and he has to pay, he has to pay whatever he has to pay, or, take care of whatever business they ask him to take care of, then that's just going to be the case. But, I don't think that this is something where, that I would, I'm not throwing the baby out of the bathwater with Gervonta Davis on this. I remember that we were in a similar circumstance some years ago, and I personally jumped the gun on him a little bit. Not a little bit. I jumped the gun on him but basically what happened was he was in Baltimore and he was training for a fight. I do believe he was training for that fight, for the Francisco Fonseca fight, which was on the undercard of the Floyd Mayweather Jr. Conor McGregor fight. And he was in the boxing ring, and he wound up getting in an altercation with somebody outside, with a friend or something like that, a neighborhood friend, and they wound up getting into a scuffle. The guy leaves, goes to the police department, and then files charges, assault charges on Gervonta Davis. What winds up happening in court, though, is that the guy withdraws his testimony, and nothing happened with it, right? So that was that scenario. And then also there was other scenarios, like what happened with his girlfriend. And I don't think anything happened with those charges with him as well in that particular instance. But, a lot of people are going to point to something which is reasonable, right? And say, well, there's a lot of smoke, there's fire. I don't know, man. It just seems as if, Gervonta Davis is a kid that runs around, likes to have a lot of fun, and is, getting himself in a little bit too much trouble. I don't think that it's something that is, like I said, that is going to probably affect his career, because, you see so many other people in the boxing world that have a lot more serious allegations against them, and it winds up where it really doesn't affect their boxing. That's just kind of the world we live in, right? And I'm not, and, when I sit and I watch, for example, a guy like Sergey Kovalev, who has been accused of a bunch of stuff. And I usually don't get into that, but, Gervonta Davis is, his, I'm not going to say what his rap sheet is, winds up being, because like I said, I don't know how many things he's been accused of that is actually stuck on the guy, right? As far as I know, and please correct me if I'm wrong in the comment section, but this accusation, if this sticks, would be the first one that I know of that since he's been a professional, that winds up, being stuck on him. And then there are circumstances where because people are famous or whatever, that people might be a little bit extra litigious about it. But with Gervonta Davis, I would say, hey, what I'll say is I'm going to wait and just see, how that stuff transpires. It says that somebody, was seriously injured. I don't know what seriously injured means, whether or not that means that it was a life-threatening injury or whether or not he had a broken leg or a broken arm, because, a broken arm is a serious injury. That doesn't necessarily mean that it is a life-threatening injury. So there is a likelihood that, first there's a likelihood that Gervonta Davis wasn't driving the car and that the person that was hit said that they saw him driving the car. So, that's going to be a matter of fact that these guys are going to have to go over in court. So, maybe that's the case. Maybe that's not the case that he was driving the car. If he was driving the car and it wound up being an accident and he winds up leaving the scene, did he have a reason to leave the scene? Was there some type of, was he injured or anything like that? All that stuff is going to come out and it's going to play itself out in court. But for this particular one, I'm not going to jump down his throat and say, yeah, this, Gervonta Davis is a bad guy. He really needs to grow up and this, that, and the other thing. At a certain point in time, man, a guy 24 years old, 25 years old is going to make his own decisions. And, this isn't something that is going to wind up having him in jail. It's not something where somebody died. It's something where somebody's car was wrecked. His car was wrecked. So hopefully what'll happen is that that whoever's responsible for it, right? And there's also another chance that, the wreck was caused by somebody else, because I don't see here where they're saying that there were anything related to, reckless driving or something like that. It says basically like that he left the scene and that they didn't, render reasonable assistance to a injured person. I don't know how. It doesn't seem like he was charged. He definitely wasn't charged with like drunk driving or anything like that, which is good. Now that possibly could have been why he or the other person left the scene, especially if there was some alcohol involved in it and they're like, oh man, we'll crash the car. The car crashed and that is what it is. Let's leave the scene. Make sure we don't get stuck for something like, for example, maybe if they had like firearms on them or they had something like that, it just could have been, could have been anything like that. So, I'm still, 100% behind Gervonta Davis. I'm going to be positive about this one. I don't think much is going to come of it, right? Other than he's going to have to pay, some type of fee. But, people are going to use this as fuel to say that he's irresponsible. But at the end of the day, it's going to wind up feeding right back into his popularity because it keeps his name in the media. Good, bad, or indifferent, it does just that. So anyway, that's my take on the matter. You let me know what you think in the comment section. And with that, I'm out. Peace.